The 1997 United Kingdom general election was held on Thursday 1 May 1997, 5 years after the previous general election on 9 April 1992, to elect 659 members to the British House of Commons. Under the leadership of Tony Blair, the Labour Party ended its 18-year spell in opposition and won the general election with a landslide victory, winning 418 seats, the most seats the party has ever held to date, and the highest proportion of seats held by any party in the post-war era. For the first time since 1931, the outgoing government lost more than half its parliamentary seats in an election. The election saw a 10.0% swing from Conservative to Labour on a national turnout of 71%, and would be the last national vote where turnout exceeded 70% until the 2016 EU referendum 19 years later. As a result, Blair became Prime Minister of the United Kingdom, a position he held until his resignation on 27 June 2007. Under Blair's leadership, the Labour Party had adopted a more centrist policy platform under the name New Labour. This was seen as moving away from the traditionally more left-wing stance of the Labour Party. Labour made several campaign pledges such as the creation of a national minimum wage, devolution referendums for Scotland and Wales, and promised greater economic competence than the Conservatives, who were unpopular following the events of Black Wednesday in 1992. From then until 1997, the party consistently trailed behind Labour in the opinion polls. The Labour Party campaign was ultimately a success. The party returned an unprecedented 418 MPs, and began the first of 3 consecutive terms for Labour in government. However, 1997 was the last general election in which Labour had a net gain of seats until the snap 2017 general election 20 years later. A record number of women were elected to Parliament, 120, of whom 101 were Labour MPs. This was in part thanks to Labour's policy of using all-women shortlists. The Conservative Party was led by incumbent Prime Minister John Major and ran their campaign emphasising falling unemployment and a strong economic recovery following the early 1990s recession. However, a series of scandals, party division over the European Union, the events of Black Wednesday, and a desire of the electorate for change after 18 years of Conservative rule all contributed to the Conservatives' worst defeat since 1906, with only 165 MPs elected to Westminster, as well as their lowest share of the vote since 1832. The party was left with no seats whatsoever in Scotland or Wales, and many key Conservative politicians, including Defence Secretary Michael Portillo, Foreign Secretary Malcolm Rifkind, Trade Secretary Ian Lang, Scottish Secretary Michael Forsyth, and former ministers Edwina Currie, Norman Lamont, David Mellor, and Neil Hamilton lost their parliamentary seats. However, future Prime Minister Theresa May was elected to the safe Conservative seat of Maidenhead, and current Speaker John Bercow at Buckingham. Following the defeat, the Conservatives began their longest continuous spell in opposition in the history of the present-day Conservative Party, and indeed the longest such spell for any incarnation of the Tories, Conservatives since the 1760s, lasting 13 years, including the whole of the 2000s. Throughout this period, their representation in the Commons remained consistently below 200 MPs. The Liberal Democrats, under Paddy Ashdown, returned 46 MPs to Parliament, the most for any third party since 1929 and more than double the number of seats it got in 1992, despite a drop in popular vote, in part due to tactical voting by anti-conservative voters supporting it in lieu of Labour in areas where that party had little strength. The Scottish National Party returned 6 MPs, double its total in 1992. As with all general elections since the early 1950s, the results were broadcast live on the BBC. The presenters were David Dimbleby, Snow and Jeremy Paxman.